Hello and welcome to Mika Aesthetics. I'm Mika and I make the things. Today we are embarking on our first sewing project, which is super exciting. I did a lot of research before beginning sewing, and one of the things that I was told to get in the swing of things is to make a dress form. I made this using a customized pattern from BootstrapFashion. I will link where you can get your own customized pattern below. This will be a two-part series. This part, the first, will go into making the mock-up, checking the pattern, see if I need to adjust anything, and then the final construction of the fabric portion. Part 2 will be creating the stand and a brief analysis of the costs of the materials going into this, and why I chose to not follow the directions at all. Well, 95% didn't follow the directions on that part. Just to give you guys a little heads up, these two videos will be a good indicator of my learning process when it came to filming. Because I didn't have a clear understanding of what I needed to record or what was important or not important to record, there's some stuff that's missing from the filming, so I've supplemented this video with some of my Instagram posts, which if you want to follow me, shameless plug, and Snapchat stories. So I didn't get everything filmed, but I do have photographs of some things that I did. Now that you know what you're getting into, let's begin. Before beginning this project, I took my measurements in my favorite undergarments, which hold my shape in my preferred ideal. This ideal is what I hope to accentuate with my future projects. I then followed the instructions on Bootstrap's site to get my pattern. Before I even cut my mock-up, I spent some time reading and rereading the instructions to make sure I understood them. Once I felt I had a good grasp on them, I began to make the mock-up. Following Bootstrap's instructions, I aligned the grains and spaced out my pieces with an extra ½ inch around for seam allowance. I asked to not have the allowances built into the pattern because I found it easier for hand sewing to have the seam line marked instead of the seam allowance. sewed the mock-up by machine, which at the time I didn't realize desperately needed to be serviced. That is, until it kept having the tension change mid-stitch line. But I did manage to get the mock-up together before deciding to put it away until I could have a professional look at it. I was glad to learn that the pattern was perfect without any adjustments, so that meant that I could start on the final fabric without any changes. Even though this dress form will probably never be tossed in the wash, I still pre-wash the fabric, pinking the ends to prevent fraying beforehand, and ironing afterwards to prep it. Then came the difficult part of cutting out the fashion fabric. I wanted my pattern to look continuous over the form, so the fabric needed to be aligned with that in mind. I started with the back, because if I ended up messing up, which I did, I'd rather be on the back. Instead of having the pattern continue, these first panels I accidentally mirrored the pattern. During this process, I realized that my pattern was not symmetrical and didn't repeat as often as I thought it did. There were minute differences in the skulls and angles of the bones I hadn't been paying attention to. I then adjusted how I was aligning my pattern pieces and started getting the results I wanted. When I continued on to the front panels, I did a much better job of aligning the pattern. Then from the back panels, I managed to get these to continue the pattern how I wanted. Then was the interfacing. I went a little off the instructions with this one, just because they suggested that you line your fabric before you cut your panel. But because I was matching the pattern and using a lot of material, I decided that doing the interfacing afterwards would save me from too much waste. This is an iron-on interfacing, so the shiny side of the interfacing should meet the wrong side of the fabric. I fit the pieces as closely as possible to minimize waste. Doing the interfacing after making my chalk markings also let me isolate the chalk so it wouldn't fade or smudge while being handled. Because it's under the protective layer of the interfacing, this made sewing afterwards so much easier. I then followed the construction instructions given, but this time backstitching by hand instead of using the machine. When I had condensed the pieces into 4 larger panels, I decided to do the marker lines they suggested with a herringbone stitch for texture and visibility. Getting to this stage took about a month of work, mostly because I was doing as tiny as stitches as possible to make the seams as strong as I could. Once the outer shell was done, I could move on to the inner structure. I was instructed to add lines of stitching up and down the panels following the grain of the fabric. These will prevent the panels from warping when they are under stress and strengthen the fabric. Here I did running back stitches to save time. Once the inner panels were strengthened, it was time to attach them. I prepped the seam allowances they would be connecting to, pinned and sewed, again with a tiny back stitch for strength. Lastly was adding the zippers. I have a personal vendetta against invisible zippers, so I used chunky zippers and adjusted the pattern accordingly. And there we go. Our fabric portion is finished. I don't have any documentation of attaching the bottom with the zippers to the actual dress form, but live and learn, I guess. I hope you guys stick around, subscribe, like, please comment. I would love to hear from you guys. There's a lot of you that I don't know, so if you want to introduce yourself and tell me something cool, I would love that. If you guys want to check out what I'm doing in real time, you can follow me on Instagram at Mika_aesthetics. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in part 2 of this adventure. Toodles. I'm not a social person. Not a social person at all. Hi, kitty. Oh, look at you. No, I'm sorry, I can't let you in here. No, stop meowing. Okay, we're good. Okay, we're just gonna stop this take. Today's video is the beginning of a two-part series where I make this. I made this, look at this. I made something. And it looks okay. You look okay. She's useful. She's useful, very useful. I need to get B-roll of you, but that will not be today. That will be a day where I don't have to look cute. So possibly tomorrow. That'll do, pig. That'll do.